Hi, my name is Ainsley Neverett. I'm here to do my ESL presentation. I did my research paper on English as a second language for African speakers in South Africa. There's much to learn from how other countries' educational systems function and the state of their ESL programs. South Africa has a diverse history because they were under apartheid rule from 1948 through 1994. And during this time, their educational system was set up in such that their two official languages were English and Afrikaans. No African languages at this time were official. African language speakers were taught in separate schools, so they were segregated between English, white, and other races, the other majority race being Indian. They were taught in their mother tongue languages. The Africans were taught in their mother tongue languages for the first 8 years of their schooling, with a transition to English or Afrikaans after that period of time. Now, in South Africa, most of the Cape or the western side speaks the majority Afrikaans, and the eastern side speaks more English. So, depending on where people lived, that is where they transitioned, is what language they transitioned, whether it be English or Afrikaans. So this was the case until 1976, when the Soweto uprisings occurred. And now some of you may have heard of the Soweto uprisings because this is where Nelson Mandela became famous, because he was one of the key people involved in the Soweto uprisings, where the blacks advocated for equal education in the under the governmental system of the time, which was apartheid. After the Soweto uprisings, the government switched mother tongue teaching from 8 to 4 years, and so after 4 years, they would transition to the official languages, English and Afrikaans. I have a graph that I wanted to show you, but it was showing up backwards, which my other one is showing up backwards too, but I think that one will be okay. But on this graph, we can see that students that are taught in a dual medium setting, so those that have people that come from two language backgrounds or one language background, but are taught in both of those language or in two languages, have a much higher graduation success rate of between 50 and 60%. Those students that have a late exit from their mother tongue into the English, they have about a 40% success rate, and those that have an early exit only have about a 35% success rate. Now, when they switch to the other language of instruction, which is the official languages in South Africa, which are English and Afrikaans, or were English and Afrikaans, the ones that exited late, they had a higher knowledge of the material. So that explains why the late exit models are higher than the early exit models. And finally, those that were taught English only and no mother tongue teaching, they had the lowest success rates of about 24% graduating from high school. Now, this model was done in the U.S., but was used as research and as a model in African studies on mother tongue teaching and English as a second language. Another interesting part of this graph that you can see is from first to about fourth and through from first to about sixth grade, really. You can see that they're all progressing quite well. It's later in the schooling when the material becomes more difficult that second language learners start to fall behind, and those on the top here are the ones that are taught in bilingual, and these in the middle are the early and late exit students, and these at the bottom are the only taught in the second language and no mother tongue teaching. So a few items that I think can help with this statistic, as from our point of view as English as a second language teachers, is that we must have a working knowledge of the culture that the student comes from. And this is so important to be able to help them from the sink or swim situation. We also need to keep in mind that students have often in other countries have poor educational skills in their L1, which is the case in South Africa. South Africa has they struggle with a lot of their educational systems funding and several other factors that contribute to this. And one thing I didn't mention is South Africa in 1994, when apartheid ended, 11 official languages were recognized, and they are required now to learn in their mother tongue for a period of time, and that varies from region to region. But we as ESL teachers need to realize that many students may speak their indigenous language better than the official language of the country. In South Africa, they switched to recognize 11 official languages of the indigenous languages, but many countries do not or have not done that. Many countries have a larger class division than the USA, and this is true especially in a lot of the South American countries, but also in South Africa too. And we need to be aware of that and recognize that individuals can be extremely different depending on their social status in their country, on the education levels that they have. So their education levels can vary dramatically depending on their social status or their financial status in their home country. So, with that being said, I have a graph today representing a distribution of the now 11 official languages of South Africa, and this one is backwards too, but I am going to go ahead and show it to you because it's a bar graph, and you can still see well the distribution of the 11 official languages in South Africa. And there is an international consensus that students do the best in a dual medium setting. So let me show you now. These are the 11 official languages of South Africa. This is Afrikaans, which is spoken by about 6.8 million people. And this is as their L1. English has about 5 million in their L1. The Ndebele, and I may butcher some of these African languages, because in my experience when I lived in South Africa for a year, I was in a Zulu region, and I was also familiar with Xhosa. These are the two most popular not popular, but most widely spoken languages in South Africa. As you can see, Zulu is the most spoken language in all of South Africa at about 11.5 million, and Xhosa is spoken by about 8 million. These languages in the middle here are the other official African languages that are spoken, and they range from about 5 million to Venda at only 1 million. And so this shows you the diversity of South Africa. And I have written two statistics, or one statistics that's very interesting, and one fact that I also wanted you all to know. And this one is very sad, but despite efforts in South Africa, there is still less than 1% of African language learners, this is as of 2000, that that pass in year 12 in math and science. Only less than 1% pass math and science by year 12. So South Africa still has huge challenges, even though they are trying very hard to equalize or stabilize their educational system in the country. They are required today to learn 2 languages, and English is still recognized as an important international language, so it is taught in all schools. Thank you.